Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 3 hours, I keep forgetting our times have changed. For the next 3 hours, I'm going to be your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 11 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern. Right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network and on TalkStream Live Radio. If you'd like to send us an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our main radio website at www.xzoneradio.com. And you can find out all about the great new programming that we will be having on the X Zone Broadcast Network by going to our website, xzbn.net. My first guest tonight, Exonation, is Craig Webb. He is the executive director of the nonprofit Dreams Foundation for more than 25 years now. Craig is a McGill University graduate with pioneering dream and lucid dream research at Stanford University and Montreal Sacre-Coeur Hospital. As an author, columnist, and hired invited expert for major motion pictures, Fortune 500 companies, universities, international TV networks, magazines, and so on. He's broadcast and published cutting-edge approaches on dreams, applied psychology, communications, creativity, and the science of mind, as well as interviews with leading visionaries. His empowering trainings have enabled CEOs, celebrities, doctors, professors, best-selling authors, world-class athletes, students, and all others from all walks of life to make profound breakthroughs while having plenty of fun. Joining me now from Montreal, is Craig Webb. And Craig, how are you, my friend?
Rob, always great to join you. Doing great. Doing a Midsummer's Night Dream. Get to start off the show here.
Yeah. You know what? It's great having you with you. Every time you're on the show, I kind of do an out of body and end up in Montreal, around the McGill University, the old memories, yeah. The what was it called? The ghetto? McGill Ghetto? Elmer Street. Yeah, it's still there, eh?
Yeah.
Good.
Little trivia for you tonight.
Okay.
Exactly, plus 1 hour, but exactly 3 months ago, we spoke, and I was on the X Zone, so that's an interesting timing, plus or minus 1 hour. Across the space-time continuum.
So what's new in the world of dreamology?
Dream research, there's an interesting new study, exploration, really. It's not a full study yet, in lucid dreaming, where people can realize they're dreaming during the dream while they're asleep. Mm-hmm. And it's actually been proven in the sleep lab by signaling, putting little electrodes on the eyes, and in the dream, moving the eyes left and right, in the dream scene, looking left and right. And then on the sleeping body, you can see a prearranged eye movement signal. So it's been proven scientifically. But now there's somebody has hooked up a brain command line interface, one of these, EEG headsets, and then you can practice certain types of thoughts. Example, push away a big sign, or pull a sign forward, like on the computer screen with just your brain waves. And they were able to replicate that during a dream, just imagining or seeing themselves in the dream pushing something away. So they communicated with the waking world via specific thinking, which is pretty cool.
It is. Craig, you and I have to take our first break for this first hour, Exonation. Craig Webb is our special guest, all the way from Montreal. And Craig, what's the best website for people to get more information about you?
Hope they can hop on dreams.ca. Nice, easy place with lots of great info.
It's that simple, dreams.ca. And Craig Webb and I return on the other side of this 2-minute break as we continue from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, IPBN Radio Network, and TalkStream Live Radio. Don't go away. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Exonation, Craig Webb is our special guest this hour, www.dreams.ca. Craig, maybe we should go back and try and understand what dreams actually are. So let me ask you this question. What are dreams made of?
The stuff that dreams are made of, right? Out of the movie line there. Well, there's an interesting parallel I like to draw here. We have a few kind of major concepts out there that would be interesting to tie together. We have Einstein's relativity equations.
Relatively?
And relatively, his relatives, all his friends and neighbors. But also his, core idea of energy equals mass.
Yes.
E equals mc squared. The c squared is important because that's sort of the light, speed of light, and the shape of light coming into the world here makes a projection screen of this physical world. So he tied together mass and energy. But in dreams, we have an interesting experience. Lucid dreamers are good researchers because they can explore in real time, like I often do. And in some dreams, when I've kind of let the dream go, and just kind of be with it, or consciously send a thought to, the dream weaver, the force behind that makes the dream, to just dissolve whatever is not real. Interesting that the fabric of the dream, the images, the symbols, sort of even my body image in the dream, dissolves and sort of light particles scintillate and disappear off into this empty, dark, for lack of a better word, a void. But let's say in waking life, it might be the equivalent of a 0-point energy or a blank point. So I think there's actually an all potential field that can turn into light, like at the start of the Bible, let there be light. And then it can create forms and shapes. And then in dreams, all the symbols and characters we know. And then in life, all the objects we know. But interesting that there's some central consciousness with, attention focus behind it that creates all the forms.
Listen, Craig, can people actually meet up in dreams?
Hey, maybe you and I can meet up.
Hey, there's an idea.
Right now.
Yeah, we can go to the Sir Winston Churchill pub and kick back a few.
In dreams. We wouldn't get too drunk, fortunately.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about dreams. But yes, definitely. In the teleclasses I lead, that's one of the experiments that the students often try. Just out of interest, an inner version of Skype or some equivalent. And you don't need special phone lines or high-speed connections. You can just meet on Dreamland. It's not always 100% exactly the same dream, like we would experience a waking moment of sort of two perspectives on the same event. Sometimes it's more mutual theming, example 2 weeks ago, actually, in a teleclass I was offering. I actually knew one of the students, actually my partner that week, because we pair up.
Right.
Her experiment was to swim underwater and breathe underwater. So in my dream, I'm kind of confined in a little dark room, sort of a basement room. I lean into this glass barrier of some sort because I see water behind it because I'm lucid. I realize I'm dreaming. And I go into the water and breathe deeply. I find out in waking life that within about a day, so maybe not the exact moment, but she had a very similar dream, except she was looking through the glass, seeing somebody breathe underwater and wishing she could do it because it was her lucid experiment that week. So a connection of sorts.
What about inception? Is inception possible?
Yeah, inception. So I guess meeting, but also inserting an idea or maybe convincing somebody of something like the amazing Christopher Nolan movie that many people saw a few years ago. Well, I'll give you another example because I can just say yes or no easily, and obviously I'll say yes here.
That's not like you, just to say yes or no.
I want to give a little example,
exactly.
Proof of the pudding. You know?
Exactly. I love pudding.
Maybe anecdotal research, because as dreamers, the first-person explorers are scientists. You know, Rob, as you face a nightmare, or you've had a lucid dream before?
Oh, gosh, many.
Yeah. So, you become the explorer, the scientist in a way.
Yeah.
I think Jane Roberts really coined a nice phrase through Seth and some of these books. She called it a dream art scientist. So keeping creative, exploring the dream, but also doing it logically. And in this case, a student of mine I didn't know, but was actually swimming out in the ocean. So I found this out after my dream. But in my dream, I'm going in this deep, dark waters. It's kind of scary. I see these dark shapes. I think, oh, maybe that's a big shark. I could get hurt. And I've had lots of practice in dreams of not slipping into fear. So I say, no, I don't accept it. I kind of consciously move that to the side, and it becomes a log. Or it becomes something like a really nice fish, a whale shark, which is safe.
Or if you're at a beach in Cuba, it could become floating feces.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be my ultimate dream, but whatever is your fancy, you know. And in this case, I learned that, a few days later, you can say kind of an inception here, she was actually swimming out in the ocean alone and, not too far out, but just where the coral drops off into the deep blue. And she had these big fear thoughts. What if there's sharks? What if I get, caught by big waves or et cetera, which they're not terrible thoughts. They're just some wisdom in there. But she decided to face her fear a little bit because it was a nice day, not too wavy, and go deeper and deeper and not go into any fear. So is it possible that, almost the same day that I had the dream, I helped her move past some of the fears and limits, inception, if you will? Who knows? But an interesting story, and a very rare for me to dream underwater like that. And so 2 dreams that show I tuned into what seems to be waking moments or dreaming moments for students here.
Craig, is there a connection or a similarity between hypnosis and dreams?
An altered state, definitely, yeah. And, people use a lot of different definitions for the word dreams also. Usually hypnosis is maybe a little more guided. So, I'm following a induction recording of some sort or an actual hypnotist. In dreams, it's a little bit more self-generated, maybe the dreaming psyche. But some people do vision dream journeys, shamanic journeys, or guided dream meditations in some semi-wake state.
Right.
One of my students has these very powerful, very clear experiences, I don't know what word I would use, just before sleep. Was she suggesting it to herself? Not exactly. So it wasn't hypnosis, but it was very hypnotic in that she said what was going on in the physical room. So there's lots of bridges and gaps, but I think they're let's say a slightly different station on the dial.
As a researcher, what is your explanation of when somebody is going into a deep sleep, they get that jolt, that it's like they jump or whatever. When you talk to people within the metaphysical realm, they say that is you being conscious that your body is leaving or your spirit is leaving your body at the beginning of an out-of-body experience. As a dream researcher, what do you say that jolt is?
Well, there's lots of languages, and they can all be written sort of in English, but the languages could be householder, scientist, let's say very experienced explorer, new explorer, or any other number of different languages, even within English. So I would say it's one language to say that I'm going out of my body at that moment. It's, in a sort of very scientific way, we might ask, who's I, and which body are you going out of, and which body are you in? And I might ask a few more questions to sort of see. But I would say it might be a valid experience if the person feels happy with it. I would also say the valuable thing about all subjective experiences that they can be symbolic. In fact, all waking experiences can be symbolic if we look at it that way too. There's a sort of app that you can run of Life Like a Dream and interpret some of the events of your life. But in this case, we might say that the person's having a quick change of state. They're mentally going from, let's say, semi or fully unconscious back into consciousness. So symbolism of quick jerk, snap back, is that their physical or I guess, let's say, ethereal body entering the physical? Hard to say exactly. I don't think it's been actually measured. They did one interesting experiment that I just note. You know the 21 grams, Rob?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's actually a very slight change. I guess it's been researched a couple of times. It's a little macabre here, but when someone dies, it's a very slight weight change, or I guess mass change in their body. Nobody that I know of has researched that with consciously induced dreams or out of bodies, which would be interesting because it'd be a little bit easier than dying to prove it.
Yeah,
but it might show that there's some kind of more, let's say, physically oriented experience happening at that moment.
Apparently, that is the soul that has left the body. That is the difference between the 21 or 27 grams. In fact, we had Dr. Janet Amatuzio, who is a pathologist, who believes in that when a person dies, 27 grams is unaccounted for. And she believes that it is the soul leaving the body.
And it's almost instant, right?
Yeah.
It's not like over time the water evaporates. No, it's seconds.
Yeah.
Something like that. Well, here's an interesting thing. Let's say that there is a mass change as we go to, let's say, a pretty strong projection of consciousness. In other words, some type of energy has moved away from our physical form and is exploring the inner ethers. Would it be 21 grams? Would it be less? Would there be any change? This is interesting. Maybe it's a good way to actually quantitatively measure how well we're becoming lucid or entering other realms. How much weight we lost at that moment.
Could the interpretation of heaven or the near-death experiences that people have reported, could that actually be a dream instead of an actual metaphysical event?
Well, dreams are metaphysical events in most people's definition. It's not through the physical senses that we're experiencing most dreams. So that's kind of what we call metaphysical.
Well, let me ask you it another way. Is it possible that an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience is nothing more than a dream?
All right, we're getting into good, important semantics. I love that you're doing the Socrates method here with all the questions. I would actually redefine dream in that frame as nothing more than. How about nothing more than waking life is sort of the smaller, that's the tip of the iceberg, and the dream realm and the other states of consciousness is the bigger portion. So is it possible that an experience after death is entering the deeper levels of being or other realms? In my personal experience of having died a few times in dreams and actually having had a very close near-death experience, I would say yes. And then also having looked at a lot of the research, it seems like there's a lot of corresponding experiences from people who never read or knew each other to say that there's some kind of very common experience. It's definitely metaphysical. They often are changed emotionally and in their whole psyche and spirit. And I kind of look for the commonalities and some of the universal things, and then I get a little bit more scientific, but it's for everybody to eventually decide, and I think experiment with too, because you don't have to die to try.
Exonation, my guest this hour is Craig Webb, dreams.ca, and Craig and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue investigating dreams here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, IPBN Radio Network, and of course, live on TalkStreamLive.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships. Not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. What if someone told you could live to be 120? Would you believe him? What if he told you the Bible guaranteed it? All you needed to do was follow his rules and buy his products. Would you do it? What if you invested 20 years of your life in him? What if he tested his substances on your child? What if your child became brain damaged as a result? Meet Dr. Tyler Belknap, a fast-talking Texas admin turned health guru. At the helm of a vast health food and supplement empire, he has established himself as the authority on nutrition and longevity. But what his followers don't know is that his products are laced with bizarre psychoactive substances from genetically modified plants developed in his very own secret lab. No wonder his customers can't stop using them. Tyler Belknap will stop at nothing to keep his edge in the market, even if it means experimenting on children. Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity, a novel from the pen of political cartoonist Monty Wolverton, is an easy and entertaining read full of rich characters and intrigue. It hits home in a world filled with all kind of hucksterism and offers a glimpse of what can happen when GMO technology falls into the wrong hands. Chasing 120 by Monty Wolverton. Get your copy today at www.ptm.org/120 or on Amazon.com. How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Craig Webb is my special guest, www.dreams.ca. Still to come on tonight's show, in the next hour, Jeff Danilick will be joining us discussing Our Curious World. And in the final hour of tonight's show, Preston Dennett will be joining me to talk about UFOs and other strange anomalies. That's still to come here in the X Zone. All right, Craig, what is the most frequently asked question that you get asked when you're going out doing your lectures and your seminars? What is it? Is it a specific type of dream? Is it a question about lucid dreaming? Is it the question about people standing up and appearing to be naked in front of people? What is it?
The universal dream of naked in public, eh? Well, that's a common experience, but not the most common question. It's a good one. I'd say different audiences will have question trends. Let's say, I'll pick a couple and then we can say. If I'm just talking to general public, meeting people, and not necessarily a lecture for interested audience, the most common one will be, how do I remember dreams? Or, I don't even dream. What does that mean? Does that mean I'm like sick or am I unhealthy? And the quick answer is probably just not interested in dreams, and then they don't come knocking or they don't come visiting so much because you don't pay attention to them like normal people. Dreams are kind of like people in that way. So a little bit of attention, a few tips and techniques. We can give a couple later, but people can get kind of a Betty Crocker quick list, which really works at dreams.ca. There's some recall tips. So that's probably the most common question. And then I think maybe at a talk or radio show, there's a pretty common one that could be especially interesting for X Zone listeners, and that is, hey, when I have a dream that's very powerful and might be about the future.
Bit of dream music there for you, yeah.
A Twilight Zone kind of dream.
Yeah, exactly.
How do I know if it's just sort of because I had a pizza at midnight, or because I'm upset falling asleep, or it's an actual valid precognition that I need to act on? And that's a pretty powerful one. Have you ever had something that you felt came true, Rob? Like a dream?
A dream that came true?
Or at least partly or symbolically.
I keep dreaming that I'm going to win the lottery, and that hasn't happened yet. I dream about my wife all the time. I dream about my children all the time. I dream about my mom and dad. But as we've discussed in the past, I know when I'm dreaming. So once I'm aware that I'm dreaming, and how I established whether it's a dream or not is I try to read something, a newspaper, a sign, and if it makes no sense to me, I start having fun because I know I'm dreaming. And I'm the kind of guy that has a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream.
Just like that movie Inception there, like 4 levels deep.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Well, I'll offer an idea.
Okay.
Because sometimes that's a question. Hey, what can I do once I'm lucid also? That's usually a little bit more like teleclass students or interested dreamers who have the recall going well. But they'll say, okay, now that I'm getting a little more lucid, or like you said, becoming aware in a dream that you're dreaming, what can I do?
Anything you want.
Benefits. Pretty much anything, but there are rules in a way. There's kind of an inner physics. There's sort of principles, not the same principles as waking life. One thing that's kind of hard, as you notice, it's tough to read things.
Yes.
A few people are actually able to in some dreams. My guess is there's this part of our brain that allows like text and characters to be easily understood. This is kind of switched off during most dream states, so that's why that's hard. There's an interesting one that doesn't seem to be a fit with that, and it's very hard to change light levels. Like, to example, flip on a dream switch in the wall, in the dream wall, may not turn on the room light or may not turn it off if it's already on.
Well, you know what? I can in my dreams.
Oh, and you've actually been able to, and is it delayed at all? Because people have sometimes done it, but then it's delayed 10 seconds.
No, it's when I flip the switch, the light goes on or off.
Okay, that's great. That's actually more rare.
Really?
So that's a good experiment. Okay, well, we'll talk offline and get you to try a few other things.
Sure.
One I just heard of recently that I really like. This is sort of asking the dream weaver, the subconscious forces that create dreams, which have a pretty vast, I guess, level of intelligence, and they can sort of tune into the internet of all beings. I call it the internet. Somehow tap other people's awareness and tap what's going on in the world. Show me my greatest fear, is kind of a thought you'd ask to the dream if you become conscious. Show me my greatest fear, and also my suggestion is add on the little phrase, and help me resolve it. And one person tried this recently that I have heard of, and they had a very powerful experience face-to-face with, I guess, pretty much death, Grim Reaper in their face, but very strong. And they were lucid, realizing, hey, my body's safe in bed. Except it was so strong a fear, I guess, that it shot them out of the dream awake because they were freaked. But it's interesting to note that they recognized that in life. They did a little bit of hospice work. They went, to the cemeteries and explored just the feeling of, wow, this is limiting me. And then, and I think it was 3 or 4 months later, asked again, show me my greatest fear. And that wasn't the greatest fear anymore. It wasn't death. And the person was able to stay in the dream. So interesting how we can make some good headway on these huge lessons, right? Facing fears.
In my dreams, I dream a lot about my children when they were young. That is where most of the dreams go.
Feeling? That's always a really important part of the dream. Do you remember the feeling?
The feeling?
Yeah.
Oh, love.
Yeah.
Sure. Fond memories.
Fun, light. Great.
Yeah.
Well, that would be my guess, and that's why I asked the question, is that would be one of the reasons those dreams come. Bring back that feeling. They might not be there as much anymore. I guess they're grown up and they have their own places and stuff.
That's right, yeah.
So, the child play, the super rich love of a parent, as any parent here listening knows, you can't really match it any other way. So why not recreate a scenario where you're back in that very rich devotion feeling? And I remember one time your wife called in because I asked, did anybody ever dream of their child beforehand? It'd be great to have a call in. And your wife called in. She dreamt of your children beforehand, if you remember.
Yeah.
Before they were born, which is interesting.
It really is. Who dreams more, children, adults, seniors, men, or women? Or is it mixed right across the board?
Well, there's lots of stats. Some of them are geographical age, depends on medications and a lot of factors. We can give a few stats though. The cycles change. So the sleep cycle, I guess, as any parent knows here, and I guess anyone of any age can tell by their own experience. But as parents know, children, and especially very young children, are napping very often, or they're awake in the middle of the night if it's a new baby. But they're having these very short cycles of about 90 minutes. Actually, if people would time them, they'd notice they're about 90 minutes, which is a standard circadian sleep rhythm for going a little bit deeper into the unconscious and then coming back out. In the day, and as we grow, I guess, in our lives, become children, adults, teens, the same cycle happens, but a bigger cycle takes over where we're awake most of the day. Although sometimes we tune in for an afternoon nap, or we get a little bit of, let's say, super long overnighter for studying or something, and then we have to catch up the next day. So there's cycles that shift, and as we age, probably there's less learning. And that's one of the big things that happens in dreams. So we have a little bit less actual dream time, or less recall anyways, but I believe a little bit less learning. There's not as much new to learn. And then the sleep cycles are shifted, body temperature changes, there's a lot of circadian changes. So rough answer is probably somewhere in the early childhood when we're starting to learn all kinds of things, except kids don't share their dreams quite as much. But anybody who could keep track of them, even into your old age, you could have a few dreams a night if you wish.
People who are in palliative care, or in hospices, or people who are in a coma, whether or not it's caused by an accident, a disease, or induced by the medical profession, do they dream?
Yeah, there's interesting variations of types of reports. For example, is somebody who's on the edge of death dreaming when they start reporting certain experiences? Well, could be many things. Could be the medications, could be that they are having a little bit of sort of mental problems. Yeah. But quite often we see a trend. This is where it gets interesting when you start to see statistics show up trends of what's not too surprising a theme. But getting ready to leave on a boat, a train, or a plane, going on a journey, something like this, getting ready to cross the bridge, which I don't think it takes Sigmund Freud or Carl Jung to guess that the person's mentally starting to prepare for the other side. Sometimes people actually start dreaming of deceased loved ones closer to death, so that's interesting. And if they're actually in a coma and they report an experience, is it a dream? Well, it's certainly an altered state, a metaphysical, subjective experience. And if we want to call it a dream, great. I'm usually most interested in, did it provide anything valuable? Like perhaps like your dreams with the kids, it brought a really nice feeling and your day was great. Yeah. Sometimes it brings practical info. Stop taking this medication, or do this exercise. It'll help an awful lot. Or don't speak to so-and-so today because you'll get into a fight. So then it gets interesting from kind of my more scientific, pragmatic mind here. But definitely those types of experiences happen throughout most of those states you talked about.
Is a drug-induced trip a waking dream?
Definitions, huh? Let's see. A waking dream, drug-induced. It could be. Did the person stay physically conscious? Hopefully, in that case. The drugs will affect the type of dreams that we have. So the content, the linearity, the, I guess, level of more, as we might call it, waking symbolism. Reasonable, normal symbols that correspond with life will change and shift, probably according to different drugs. So that's definitely there. The amount that we experience it and believe in it and get tripped out might be stronger or less too. You know, you've had the dreams where you're a witness or a watcher or like in an audience.
Yeah.
And more often drug trips aren't like that. So they're more first person, so they can be a little bit stronger. You know, we're really believing this is happening more. Depends a little bit on the drug and the person, of course, but that's a trend.
What is the relationship between dreaming and sleepwalking?
Sleepwalking, one of the parasomnias, they're called. And there's a few here, bedwetting and grinding teeth, etc. And they usually happen in deeper states of sleep rather than the visual dreaming that most people call dreams, the REM, rapid eye movement sleep. But, you know, experiences happen throughout all the states. Sometimes people have been woken up from, let's say, teeth grinding or a night terror, and they have a little bit of visual or a little storyline. Not usually much for night terrors, just like raw fear, but sometimes like a vague figure. Sometimes sleepwalking, there was another sort of parallel story going. But mostly it's quiet without the dreaming, so they're slightly separate. But they can lead into each other. If you had anybody on the guest who has these UFO experiences or being hagged or what we call sleep paralysis.
Yes, I have. That? Oh, gosh, many times.
Yeah.
Many times.
So
you know,
waking up in bed, frozen, unable to move. But, hey, wait a minute, I'm actually awake or am I dead? That kind of experience.
Yeah, in fact, I remember years ago after having talked to sleep researchers and the same night talking to a person who claimed to have been abducted by extraterrestrials, and you know, the person who had the ET experience talked about the paralysis, and then the sleep researcher talked about what caused it, the old Hag syndrome and so on. That night I woke up around 4 o'clock in the morning and you know, I was paralyzed, and then I'm looking and I'm feeling, and I'm saying, oh, I know what this is. This is sleep paralysis. I'll just wait a few seconds, then, you know, things will kick in and everything will be okay, which is exactly what happened.
Right. That's good because, usually more in teen, early adult years before people understand or learn what we're just talking about, they'll slip into the fear of, oh my gosh, I can't move my body, am I dying? And sort of the fear direction. And there's no need, of course. Hey, by the way, when have you ever been more relaxed? You're in bed and you can't move. So if you can use a little bit of willpower, as you did pretty well there, you can shift away into peace. And it's actually a great launching board for lucid dreams, all kinds of, I guess, astral travel, out of body, if people are into those kind of things, where you can actually find out practical or, let's say, physical info about distant locations sometimes that you can track and prove later that you couldn't have known any other way, but that's, you know, pretty rare and yet valid. So interesting states can come from that if people want to explore it a little more, if they have it more often.
Is there a connection between remote viewing and dreaming?
Yeah, remote viewing. So another phrase to, you know, there's out-of-body, astral travel, non-local consciousness, remote viewing, guided dreaming, shamanic journey. So different phrases, and I believe there's a number of different states in there, maybe like different stations on the dial, although don't change your station here. We're on a great one here on X Zone.
Yeah. Thank you.
people can tune into. And what I like to say is the universal that can help people understand it a little bit. There's this universal of, let's say, types of senses or ways of experiencing things. In waking life, we have the 5 that everybody know, the physical senses, and maybe balance, so 6, if you believe it. And if you have experiences, empathy, the enteric brain, the gut, so maybe 7 or 8. But we start to shift into invisible senses, inner senses, things like we can tune into past and the future. We can tune into other people telepathically, tune into distant locations like remote viewing. So the inner senses are active in all these experiences, and that gets interesting to sort of tie them together. So yeah, is remote viewing like a dream? Sure. Perhaps a little bit more like a meditation, probably, because we're kind of tuning in and consciously, intentionally not going too deep. If we fall asleep, well, we'd probably just call it a dream.
What can parents do if their children keep on having nightmares?
Nightmares, or night terrors.
Nightmares.
Usually up until, well, they're actually quite different. So maybe we'll make a little note to parents here to check, did your child have much imagery in their really upsetting experience? If there wasn't much storyline, it was kind of raw fear, yelling, awake, daddy, and they don't want to go back to bed, it may have been a night terror, especially if it's sort of early on, within about an hour and a half of falling asleep. So it's slightly different because it happens in a different state, and it's usually much more fearful. But they can bridge into nightmares also. So night terrors, definitely watch the body temperature. This is a very little known thing. I've actually come across this, and I've been bringing this out to the world as an interesting solution. Not 100%, but if you can keep a few less blankets, or I guess in the summer, just make sure a window's open, or something that a fan, to keep a little bit, not so much temperature, because the shifts in temperature can really affect and trigger a night terror, or loud noises, or some kind of shock, sudden bang on the wall or something. So that can limit a little bit. And then obviously talking and some of the psychology. And is there something that really upset you at school that has gone unconscious, etc.? So that could be it. For night terrors, that's pretty much it. Watch a little bit what you eat and things. Throwing off your sleep cycle is not great. So try to have a regular bed schedule, back to bed and wake up schedule. For nightmares, I encourage people to check out nightmares.info. That's the website, which has an article that's really, really gone around the world, Rob. That one's been read. I would rough estimate, I'd say 10 to 50 million people have really enjoyed the idea behind that. And I feel so grateful because it's very valuable. Nightmares are great if you use it like the warning it's meant to be. Something's out of whack, something's being warned. Maybe there's a future decision, so you're getting a bit of a precog warning. Or maybe it's just like a past pain that you haven't healed and it's coming back and telling you, you better get rid of this unfinished business because it's limiting you in your life. It's probably choosing fear.
I better get to this commercial break, or else I'm going to be in doo-doo with the networks. Exonation, Craig Webb is our special guest at dreams.ca, and Craig and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone talking about dreams. In my book, the only difference between a dream and reality is simply doing it. I'm Rob McConnell. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Whatever you do, don't go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.matstein.com.
Craig Webb is our guest, dreams.ca. First of all, Craig, thanks so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you, my good friend.
But yeah, definitely.
I have to ask you this question, Craig. Is there any danger to a person physiologically or mentally if they do not dream?
Well, I don't know if there's a danger. There's been very few, on one hand, countable cases of people who, even in the sleep lab, awoken during the eye movements, actually can't recall any dream. Is it true that they're not remembering dreams or having any dreams, or that there's something actually different going on in the brain? Mm-hmm. But they seem to be living normal lives and not having any problems in that regard. My guess generally, and this is sort of shifts into other statistics, is it's probably fine if we don't remember dreams, as long as we're facing the challenges waking life brings. Because when we start getting upsetting dreams, nightmares, as we mentioned before, that article I said at nightmares.info, the title is Nightmares, Lucky You. Then we start to see that we're getting warnings, or let's say subconscious hints that are pretty clear. They're in our face. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're a little bit in symbolic language, like the naked in public you said before, or being chased, or whatever the typical theme is. But they're showing us something very important to change in our life. So there's risks that way if we don't get the messages. But if we're addressing our feelings and I guess our concerns and the events that come in our life, then it's almost the same as if we were listening to our dreams. Personally, I think we're missing out on, the best example in my view, obviously I'm a little jaded, having been a dream explorer and researcher here for 25, 30 years, is that we're kind of missing out on the internet. I call it the internet. So if in life you'd be fine without ever connecting to the internet, well, then in sort of psychology and your emotions and the explorations of inner life and all the spiritual and personal and emotional skills that you might develop, as long as you're okay not connecting to the internet, then you probably don't have to remember your dreams. But in my view, you'd be missing out on an awful lot.
Craig, I've got a minute left. What are your final thoughts and words of wisdom for the X Zone Nation tonight?
Oh, well, definitely get inspired. I guess commitment over time pays off if you want to explore dreams. Check out dreams.ca for some tips on recall, interpretations there to help understand dreams, how to become lucid, like Rob and I talked about before. Lots of great articles there. And people who are interested to check out my new book, I can say it's so packed with like amazing stories. Can't quite release all the details yet, but watch craigwebb.ca in a few weeks. So that'll be a thing with stories of people who've practically used dreams to really change the world. craigwebb.ca. So check that out. And then if people want to learn more, just write or send me a link, and I'll try to answer best I can.
Craig, I want to thank you so much for joining us, my good friend. Until the next time we meet, take care of yourself and sweet dreams.
Thanks again, Rob. And if you're lucky and the listener's lucky, maybe some happy nightmares too.
Take care, buddy.
Take care.
Bye-bye now. X-Zone Nation, Craig Webb has been my guest this hour, www.dreams.ca. And very interesting young man. Very interesting. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. My guest next hour, Jeff Daniluk. We're going to be talking about our curious world here in the X-Zone. So whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be right back.